My brother recently convinced me to try out Ori and the Blind Forest, which is in and of itself interesting because our taste in games is usually vastly different. I was initially quite hesitant to the prospect, as it's far outside the realm of the usual games that I tend to play. But after copious quantities of black tar heroin and dime store hookers used as persuasion techniques, I was finally convinced and decided to give it a try. And boy is this some good soup right here. Now, I'm not too prideful to admit that I did fuck up a little by leaving this untouched for the better part of that bread in the back of my fridge's unnatural lifespan, but that's okay, we all make mistakes. As I loaded into the game, I was immediately taken aback by the absolute nutfuck soundtrack that was gracing my earholes right off the bat. It's amazing, and it speaks boundaries for the sheer quality that you're about to experience. So without further ado, I strapped into my big boy gamer seat, poured a fat ass mug of water, and clenched my ass cheeks to experience some riveting gameplay. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I would end up morbidly depressed within the first 10 minutes of the game, but that's alright. There's always a time and place for a cry. For example, your hamster just got eaten by the neighborhood paste eater, or after an especially arduous hour-long hog crank. In the first 10 minutes of Ori, it's all equally balanced, as it should be. Granted, the first bit of the game is a little bit slow, and it does take some time to start getting into the meat of the matter, but it does a really good job of getting you emotionally invested early on in the story. Now, before the game really opens up and allows you to start doing the things that, make a game fun in terms of platforming and attacking things, you have to go through a couple mandatory cutscenes and some smaller gameplay snippets here and there just to teach you the basics. However, the game really opens up after you quite literally die. You immediately get brought back to life by the avatar spirit tree thing in the distance. Thank God the blue people were doing their Awa chant that day, or you'd be pushing daisies before the fun even started. After this part is where you start to get involved in the core gameplay loop. You explore, you fight creatures, and you more often than not die horribly, most likely many times. On your journey to restore the world, you see that currently, due to unforeseen circumstances and events, the world has been corrupted and shifted into something that can only be described in the black speech of Mordor. It's your job to return light to the land and establish peace and tranquility as the norm again. The journey takes you through many different biomes and locales, each of them wonderfully handcrafted and illustrated in order to be unique and fun to engage with. Many of these zones have little hidey holes or locations that are just out of reach that more often than not you'll need to backtrack to once you've unlocked some more powers. The exploration feels rewarding and engaging, and very few times did I feel like it was a complete mission to go grab something that I had missed. It's good to note that I'm by no means a completionist in games. I find trying to do everything a bit more tedious than trying to gnaw my own arm off. But in this game, I actually enjoyed trying to figure out how to get to the places, and sometimes, albeit rarely succeeding in getting to those spots, I probably shouldn't have at the time through luck and tenacity. It feels rewarding when your brain and skills pay off with a big boost to either your experience or you can get a health or energy upgrade. Let's touch upon the sound design in this game. In my humble opinion, it's both simple and powerful, with different zones having ambient tracks playing in the background. Monsters will make grunts and growls as they attack you, and your own attacks and movements are all pleasant to listen to. You feel light and zippy. Speaking of monsters, their designs are all pretty damn solid too. There's a decent amount of variation to be found here, and there were many times throughout my journey where I went, "Damn, that's one ugly motherfucker," when I saw something new to absolutely decimate with the fire of a billion suns. Monsters, however, are not the only thing to be aware of as you platform your way around the world at breakneck speed. There's many environmental hazards to watch out for at the same time too. Thorns, spikes, and heavy objects all threaten to put a quick and efficient end to Ori and leave her as a chutney stain upon the floor, if you're unlucky or inattentive. Working your way around them and figuring out how best to cross a tough section feels rewarding, and even though it can be frustrating from time to time, I never got annoyed enough to the point that I'd rage quit and shove my controller way up my rectum. When it comes to the story aspects, there are many moments throughout the game where I found my heartstrings being tugged upon harder than I yerk myself each and every night. The music, imagery, and strength of the set pieces all feed into a wonderfully emotional and rewarding story to play through and complete. The story is relatively simple and asks you to essentially restore the three elements of fire, water, and air to their natural and harmonious states in order to bring balance back to the forest. Each of these locations require a large amount of white-knuckling and big brain power to reach in the first place, before you enter their dungeons and complete fairly challenging platforming sections. The immediate reward for completing each of these is already quite apparent as it begins to shape the world around you. Restoring the Spirit of Water, for example, clears all the poisonous goop that was laying around, allowing you to reach new locations and turn the hostile wildlife found within this now crystalline waters into yum yum sushi time. Once you restore the Spirit of Wind, you'll notice that some new geysers and gusts of wind pop up around the map. You'll be able to float upon these and ride said winds to previously out of reach areas. It felt great finally starting to mop up areas that I couldn't for the life of me cheese earlier on in the game, and get rewarded with power-ups for doing so. So in order to start wrapping this video up before I'm forced to play a Subway Surfer video in here for all the TikTok attention span starved masses, the last thing I'd like to touch upon are the graphics. This game is starting to get a little bit long in the tooth in terms of age, but it still looks absolutely stunning. There were so many moments where I just stopped to absorb the location that I found myself in, listening to the sometimes peaceful soundtrack in the background. The design direction is still rock solid, and each of the main characters are stark and different from anything else you'll see throughout your experience. Ori herself is the cutest little protagonist, and her abilities are flashy and smooth. The monsters, friends, and enemies you encounter along the way are all unique and wonderfully whimsical in their own right as well. All in all, this was an absolutely fantastic game, and one that I thoroughly enjoyed my time with. I look forward to playing the second one at some point, but I really struggle with platformers, and this one took it out of me to get to the ending. However, I'm so glad that I did though. If you've been looking for something to play and find yourself staring at the dashboard of your console or your computer more often than not, then maybe just give this a try. Really try for about an hour or two. I'm sure it'll grip you just as it did me. Anyways, this has been my review of Ori. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all the very best for the year ahead. Go well.